I was trying to like fend people off, but I thought I was saying in Arabic, calm down. But what I was actually saying in Arabic was inshallah, which is God willing. People like throwing punches and kicking and throwing stuff at us. And I'm like, God willing, God willing.
Somebody gonna cue me or do I cue myself?
Cue yourself.
Okay. Hey everybody, guess what? We're back with another episode of Let's Talk Off Camera. Woo-hoo! So let's get talking. Guys, we're going to be joined by the one and only Anderson Cooper. Before I bring him in, okay, I want you to understand that this is going to be very difficult to interview someone that I really feel like I know, I love, I have a friendship with. I'm not even wearing a bra for this interview, okay? That's how comfortable I am. But you two.
Yes.
That would be my long-suffering producers, Jan Chalet and Albert Bianchini. For those of you at home that don't know, listeners, Albert is a proud card-carrying member of the gay persuasion who, you may or may not know, was pre-engaged to a woman named Stacy. Albert, I've known you for 23 years as only gay, but you are not a pureblood.
Well, yes. Pure blood since you've known me.
Pure blood since I've known you, but a pure blood means
yes.
You've never had sex with a woman,
No.
only you have had sex with many women.
Many.
Right. I have not had sex with a woman since I've met you, but prior to that, many women.
Was it me that finally turned you off women? Was that the thing that did it?
It was not you, no.
It was not me.
No.
Okay, good.
No.
All right, that's good. Jan?
Yes.
Did you quit women after you met me?
You quit women.
I went straight to men.
You went straight to men. So you're a pure blood,
No,
Jan.
but I am fascinated by the fact that you were with women and men, but you always knew you wanted to be with men.
But I also think you can be attracted to both.
But you weren't.
I was.
Oh, you really were?
Yeah.
Or were you just trying to
No,
push down other feelings?
there's only, you can't, how do you perform if you're
Please.
That's the voice of our first guest. But before we bring him in, I just want to read from his Wikipedia page.
Oh, I love it.
Okay, because, I could go on and on. The man is a broadcast journalist, of course. He is a CNN superstar, an icon, if you will. He is an author of 3 New York Times best-selling books. He is a fellow podcaster of the absolutely brilliant All There Is, which I like to refer to as the opposite of this podcast. We could have called this podcast whatever it is.
Whatever it is.
He is a father and one of my best friends. And I like to say that even though I am probably the sister he never wanted, he is the brother I always wished I had.
Oh.
So let's bring him into the conversation without further ado. The silver fox himself, Anderson Cooper.
Hey, how's it going? I didn't know my mic was on. I'm sorry.
No,
I'm
glad because that needed a sound effect. Because Anderson, I want you to, before we get into your accomplishments,
I want to hear more about Stacy. The mythical Stacy.
tell us about Stacy. What was it about her?
Stacy was amazing. She grew up like 10 blocks away from me. She was Jewish. Her family was literally the inverse of my Italian family. Mm-hmm. And we just really clicked and got along.
Anderson, and what do you think? Can you be attracted to both?
Oh,
I mean, you,
for
Anderson.
me, I think many people who are gay go through a period where, when they're younger, because of what they know they will face, as a kid, I wished I wasn't gay. And I thought about, I could like a woman, I could like a girl, and tried a little bit in high school and stuff, but my heart wasn't in it.
Did you
And
ever
I felt bad about
diddle around with the opposite sex?
Did I ever diddle? I don't know what diddling means.
You know,
Diddling doesn't sound very nice.
I know that you haven't had sex with women because I have tried many
yes.
times.
I have not. But I kissed some girls in high school, maybe 1 or 2 in college.
Mm-hmm. And was it revolting or was it just like,
no,
it was fine?
No, I mean, they were great. It was like, I guess for somebody who's not gay, it would be like kissing a member of the same sex. It feels nice to kiss somebody, but it doesn't.
It's not going to lead anywhere.
It's not going to go anywhere. We can be good friends.
So Anderson, let's get back to you for a second. I introduced you as the Silver Fox, which in my contacts You're not under your name, you're under Silver Fox, which makes everyone laugh all the time. How did you get that moniker, and do you like that moniker?
I don't know how I got that. I think like somewhere it was just written down somewhere and other people started writing it down. I liked when I had salt and pepper hair.
Yeah.
Like I started going gray my senior year of college. I was on the crew team and I was starving myself to get down to race weight of 125 pounds. So I would drop 20 pounds for races. And my hair by senior year started to go gray, which I think has something to do with my poor diet and starving myself for 4 years.
But I also, like when I see pictures of your half-brother, he has the shockingly white hair.
Definitely genetic.
Yeah.
Both my parents, both my mom and dad started going gray early. But so I liked, salt and pepper I didn't mind. And in my mind, I still have that. But I try to avoid looking in mirrors now because I look in a mirror, I'm like Casper the Friendly Ghost. I'm just completely white. I'm like, if I took off my glasses, you couldn't see me at all.
I've told you because I study you a lot. Even when you're sleeping, when you don't know I'm there. And there are patches of salt and pepper still.
There are some patches. I would like to expand them.
But you keep your hair too short, which I told you.
I know.
The shorter your hair is, the less that darkness shines through.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because toward the end of her life, my mom, in the last 2 years of her life, she used to watch me all on TV, and I started getting these emails from her every now and then. She'd send me an email like, honey, I saw a commercial for a hair thinning product. And I would be like, okay, is that something you're going to get? Like, do you feel like your hair is thinning? She's like, no, I don't. No, I don't. For me, no. And then a few weeks would go by, and then she would actually send me something she saw on Instagram of some hair thinning product. And I realized, wait a minute, Mom, do you think my hair is thinning? And she was like, well, I mean, maybe in some lights. And what I realized is, like, with my hair really short, you can just see my pink rat-like scalp because it comes through. It's not the hair itself is thinning. It's just that you can see my little pink scalp.
What's fascinating to me is your version of yourself. Whenever you describe yourself, you're either a rat or a newt or a mouse or the stomach of a pig, or you come up with, and the rest of us see you as, like, I look at you like a cross between Edward R. Murrow and a GQ model. Like, you're handsome and sexy, but super smart and really empathic and really...
I mean, first of all, that's not how I am. I think I see myself quite honestly. But I mean, who sees themselves in a real way? I mean, we all have these incredibly warped perceptions of ourselves.
That's true.
And
that's true.
And constantly being on television does not help because we're constantly seeing ourselves, on a monitor in high definition, which no one should see.
One of my favorite moments that I have with you in our we've known each other for over 20 years. I was pregnant with Lola when I first met you.
Yeah, so it's got to be. It's definitely over 20. Yeah, it's about 20 years.
So
because I think the first time we met was I came on the show to promote The Mole. I think.
Yeah, you were on The Mole, and our show, like, famously, the hosts have nothing to do with bookings. But I had been asking, I'm like, there's this guy, he's so smart. And I was like, I've seen him on the news, but now he's the host of The Mole. He's so adorable. He's cute and he's super smart and he's kind of dry. He'd be great for our show. And Gelman was like, oh, that's Anderson Cooper. We have the same agent. And I was like, first of all, time out. Why do you have an agent, Gelman? But anyway, so it was like one of those rare occasions that, like, something I requested actually came true.
Manifested. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
It manifested.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
And then
it changed the course of my life.
Oh, I don't think that's true. I think that the course of your life changed just because you're so brilliant.
Oh.
I want to talk a little bit about you becoming a father, because it's one of the greatest pleasures I've gotten to witness in my life.
You're so good with them. Kelly came over just a week or so ago and built a fort with Wyatt underneath my desk, and it was amazing.
Now he understands why I always looked so miserable about 20 years ago. But you had kids. You had both of your kids during COVID. And I've got to tell you, the one thing that Mark and I took solace in was that we had our kids and they grew up and had a full sort of life before COVID sort of locked them down as young adults and later teens. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I really admired your resilience, Benjamin's resilience, how you all sort of worked your way around having these two beautiful boys in the midst of like a lot of chaos. I mean, Wyatt was like 4 months old before I met him because I was so terrified of meeting a baby because we didn't know anything.
Yeah, especially with Wyatt.
Yeah.
He was born April 27th, 2020, so it was definitely in the thick of it. But, you know, because we were home so much more, it was sort of magical to be able to have that time in the house. It was just a time where we were together with him, and it was amazing in that way. I would bike into the office. I would still go in the office at night to do the show, but I look back on that time and kind of, I wish time would slow down because he's getting older quickly, and it's terrifying.
Well, as long as I've had my kids, you've been in their lives, with the exception of Michael. Michael was like 4 or 5 years old when he first met you. But I remember thinking that you would be a great father. It was like one of my earliest thoughts was that.
Yeah, you always said that. You always said that to me.
And just watching you give them your undivided attention, which is so hard to do when everybody's talking to you, wanting your time, wanting your attention, wanting to have a discussion about politics or whatever hurricane was coming down the pike. You're their ear. But if my kids brought a toy in to play with, you would get down and give them your undivided attention and really play with them, immerse yourself. And I wonder, like, do you remember doing that with your own father? Was your father taken away from you too soon to remember those times?
No, I remember that. I mean, I remember my dad was a very intentional parent. Just like me, my dad was, he died at 50, so he was 40 when he had me. My mom was 42, or maybe even 43, which at that time was, you know, quite old for a woman to have a child. But my dad was very much wanted kids, very much wanted to have boys, and really was an amazing, amazing dad. And those are the only memories I have memories of him, some of which I've read from a book he wrote, but a lot of them are things I remember, you know, every night. Sometimes there was a phase where I would, after dinner, say, oh, let's go out for pizza. And not that I really even wanted pizza that much. It was more I just wanted some time with him one-on-one. And so I remember all these things of him and me, or him and my brother and I. And I think that's one of the benefits of having waited. I think it's one of the benefits of having kids at the age I did is this is my priority. I'm not in the phase of my career where I'm constantly on the road and I have more control over my day-to-day decisions. I'm not being called to go someplace and have no control over it.
Yeah, I mean, I think about it a lot because if you had, say, had those little boys and had to go to Egypt during the Arab Spring or any of the dangerous places you had gone, I would have been at the airport clinging to your legs saying, please don't go, you have children. You know, and I know women and men do it all the time. I do realize that.
Well, and you think about men and women who serve overseas in the military who are gone for a year, it's incredible, the sacrifice. I mean, the sacrifice not only of the person who's gone, but also of the loved one who's staying behind, caring for the kids and for the children. I mean, I always knew intellectually that's a really hard thing to do. But now having kids myself, like right now, Benjamin, their other dad, is in Paris with both the kids because it's Benjamin's 50th birthday. And I'm like alone this week without them. And I am really depressed. Yeah. And I was just texting with Benjamin. I was like, can you guys come home sooner? Because I really do not know what to do with myself. So I'm hoping this podcast will last for several hours because I got nothing else to do.
Good. Excellent. Perfect. It's funny because you were talking about military service members and you've met so many members of every aspect of the military. And I can't imagine like having a spouse go into the military. And I think I've been talking to you a little bit about this off camera, but our youngest son, Joaquin, talks quite a bit about when he gets out of college, he wants to go into the military. And it's like the thought of my child going into the military is it's the scariest thing. And I understand, like, if you have a calling, you have a calling, and he's an adult at that point. I can't really do anything about it. But it is like the scariest thought that I can conjure up, because you don't know. You don't know where you'll be sent. You don't know what your assignment is. You don't know what wars lurk in the future. It's just one of those ever-present thoughts in our mind. And when you said, like, the sacrifice these families make, it's suddenly become like a very real thought in my head all the time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Do you think he will?
Our youngest son, Joaquin, talks quite a bit about when he gets out of college, he wants to go into the military. Mm-hmm. And it's been a constant drumbeat basically since he met Marcus Luttrell, believe it or not. Uh-huh. And he really was a very...
Marcus is
he's an amazing man, and he had a profound impact on all three of my kids, but particularly Joaquin. Maybe because he was the youngest, maybe because Joaquin has always been... Like, I always liken him to you. I don't know if it's the dyslexia connection, because I know you had dyslexia as a kid, and Joaquin has dyslexia. There's something about people with dyslexia who operate on a different plane, and maybe they're just braver than everybody else. I don't know if that's a thing, but he's just always been more adventurous, braver, and more willing to put himself out there. Did you ever want to go into the service?
I did, yes. I mean, at the time, you weren't allowed to, because gay people weren't allowed to join the military. But yeah.
Did you think about finding some other aspect to serve where, since gay people could not go into the military, did you think of some other way, like special operations or?
I did. I mean, I interned at the CIA 2 summers when I was in college. You also couldn't be gay for that. So all the stuff I was interested in doing, I wasn't allowed to do because you couldn't be gay. But a lot of the things that sort of appealed to me about, the intelligence work and of the military, I was interested in travel. I was interested in seeing the world. I was interested in learning about other cultures. I was very patriotic, and I was interested in current events, and I was interested in conflict zones. I was very interested in issues like survival and how people survive and what happens to societies that fall apart. And I realized a lot of the things that I was interested in, I could do as a reporter, and it would sort of meet a lot of the same criteria. I could travel, I could go to war zones, I could shine a light on the suffering of others, I could try to help people in their suffering by documenting it, by informing people about it.
And you could still be gay.
And you could still be gay.
Yes, right.
And, I was traveling in a lot of countries where they would,
right.
be very hostile to you if you were gay. But that didn't stop me from doing it. But
you faked your press credentials. Is that right?
Fake is a strong word. But yes, a friend made a fake press pass for me. I was working at a thing called Channel 1, which was a show seen in about half the high schools and middle schools in the United States in the early 1990s. Mm-hmm. And it was a 12-minute news program with 2 minutes of commercials that was provided to any school in America that wanted it for free in every classroom. And it was about 8 million middle schools and high schoolers watching every day. And I was a fact checker there for 6 months. And then I was like, okay, I would rather be a reporter. I want to
be in the field.
Yeah, I want to be in the field. And if I had just gone to my bosses at Channel 1 and said, I'd like to be on air, there would have been like, you're the fact checker. No, that's not going to happen. When you're in an organization, I mean, for anybody out there, when you're in an organization, they tend to see you in one way. And very often you have to leave that organization to make them see you in a different way. And so I realized if I told them I wanted to be on air, I couldn't. So I just didn't say anything. I just left. I told them I was going to start to go to wars. They let me borrow a camera. The director of the show made on a Macintosh like a press pass with my photograph and the Channel 1 on it and laminated it. And I snuck into Myanmar and I hooked up some students fighting the government. I shot a story about them and then did some stuff in Vietnam during the embargo, and then ended up going to Somalia in the early days of a famine.
For anybody out there that's listening to this, if you haven't read Anderson's book, Dispatches from the Edge, It is a must read, because the way you weave together your life, your personal life and your work life is just sort of a tapestry of brilliance. And you tell all of these stories, which I find harrowing and gripping, and sometimes I'm laughing, and sometimes I'm really like, I have visceral reactions when you talk about Somalia, when you talk about the Rwandan genocide. Is there one place where you ever felt that you were in the most danger, like far and above everywhere else?
So for the first like 2 or 3 years, I was initially I was by myself. So for the first year of doing stuff, in early days in Somalia, I was by myself. And that was really scary. I had no security. I had no place to stay. I had no place to sleep. I ended up sleeping on the floor of the Red Cross compound because they let me. And it wasn't until several years down the road, like when I started working for CNN, even several years into that they would have security for me and stuff in some places. But I was in a lot of places where I knew people who were doing the same thing I was doing who ended up getting killed. And it was just by sheer luck that didn't happen to me. There's a young man named Dan Eldon, who was a young, really smart, amazing photographer who was my age, or maybe a little bit older, doing the same thing, just starting out in Somalia. And he ended up getting attacked by a mob and chased through the streets and killed, along with 2 other journalists.
Yeah. I remember when you were in Egypt, and
that was probably for me the closest I've come to problems.
I remember all of us, like not sleeping at night, thinking about you, worrying about you. And I remember that you, in all of your text messages or brief phone calls, you kept everything so light for everybody else. You told your mom that you were staying at a hotel with a nice courtyard pool. I remember you told her that.
That's true. I told her that the morning everything went south. This was before President Mubarak in Egypt stepped down, and there were hundreds of thousands of people in the streets. And it was a day that it would start to be clashes between the pro-Mubarak forces and the anti-Mubarak forces in the streets right outside the area we were at Tahrir Square. Yeah, and I called my mom that morning, and I always like to touch base with her when I was overseas, and it wasn't a problem when I was on Channel 1 because it was only seen in schools, and she couldn't see what I was doing, so I could just easily lie. But on CNN, she could actually just turn on the TV and see where I was. So I called her and I was like, oh yeah, I'm in Egypt, but it's not as bad as you see on TV, which was not true at all. It was way worse. And I was like, I'm just going to stay by the pool today. I don't even know if there was a pool at the hotel, but I certainly wasn't going to hang out at the pool. She must have known I was lying, but she was cool about everything. But that was the day I actually did get attacked with my cameraman and producer, and it could have gone bad in a million different ways. It was not a good scene, and we ended up having to try to evacuate to another hotel and be in hiding for several days, and then have an extraction team come and extract me. And I mean, it was bad, but I had to call her up afterward and I'd be like, right before, because by the time I got back, I'd gotten attacked by a mob. I'd videotaped it because I figured I'm going to get killed. I at least want to videotape it so somebody can make a story about it.
Attaboy.
And so I had a cameraman who was getting attacked at the same time, who was rolling, and I had a small camera in my hand as well. I was videotaping. So we quickly edited together the piece. And right before it aired, I called my mom because I didn't want her to see it on CNN the first thing. So I was like, Mom, hey, I just want you to know, like, things were a little bad. It'll be on CNN in a little bit, and I just want you to know I'm fine. And
I remember calling her, and she said, "Oh, Anderson's having a wonderful time. He switched hotels, and he's staying at a place with a pool."
I did switch hotels, and it may have had a pool. That's true. But yeah, I switched hotels because literally the concern was that pro-Mubarak forces, there were rumors they were coming into the hotel and going to take out Westerners.
Yeah.
And so we slowly tried to evacuate as many personnel as we could.
Do you think about that in your mind in that moment, where you're like, okay, I'm about to be killed. I better roll my camera.
Because I do think if you're going to get killed, you might as well videotape it, because at least there'll be like a great video played at your funeral of like, you know what, like the last shot of you waving goodbye.
I don't know how your mind works.
Well, because I'm a storyteller. I want to tell the stories. So what was interesting about it is I'd never been in a fight before. Like I've never been in like a fist fight.
Oh, really?
At that point I hadn't. I've actually subsequently been in some altercations, but but I'd never like been punched in the head or kicked in the head or something by a group of people. And so to suddenly have that happen, it definitely like gets your attention.
Your adrenaline kicks in.
Your adrenaline kicks in. And so I wasn't thinking straight. I was thinking like, we can still make it. We were trying to get through the mob of pro-Mubarak supporters to get to the people who were in Tahrir Square, who were about to be besieged for several days. It was just in the early hours before it all just exploded. And as we were close to getting through this mob of pro-Mubarak supporters who had been revved up to be very anti-Western media by the vice president at that point of Egypt, we were within sight of Tahrir Square when we'd made it through like 3 blocks of pro-Mubarak supporters just by like not making eye contact, just like walking. And then all of a sudden in a mob, if one person does something, it can like change the vibe. And one person came out of the crowd and like lunged or like punched or something. I can't exactly even remember what it was. And just
like that.
The mob, like a school of fish, like the mob
turned.
Like people's attention just turned. And all of a sudden, that was it. And I was like, "Oh, we can still get there." And thankfully, we had one guy with us. There were 2 security people that CNN had for like 40-something people.
Oh my
there.
God!
And we had one of them, luckily. And anyway, thank God we had him because he was at least rational. And he was like, "Mate, we can't make it. We can't make it there." Right. We need to like circle up and
pivot,
get back. And so we started moving back, and like, he was like, don't run, keep walking, and, keep the circle tight. But I was trying to like fend people off and also videotaping. And also then I thought I was saying in Arabic, calm down. But what I was actually saying in Arabic was inshallah, which is God willing. So I'm like this, I don't know what they were thinking. I'm like being, people like throwing punches and kicking and throwing stuff at us. And I'm like, God willing, God willing. So
maybe it kept you alive.
No, I don't know what it is.
I remember when you got back,
mm-hmm.
we met you and Benjamin out for cheeseburgers downtown. Do you remember this? You were very, very skinny. You dropped a lot of weight and you just wanted a cheeseburger. And we walked in. You guys had a table in the back, and we were with Michael and Joaquin.
Mm-hmm.
And we walked in, and there was this old man at the bar eating a cheeseburger. And Michael goes, "Oh my God, he looks terrible." And I was like, "That's not him. That's like an 87-year-old man."
When you're young, you think you're invincible, or you think when somebody gets killed, you think like the world stops. And then the more you see things, the more places you go to, and the more people you see die around you, you realize like the world keeps spinning. And it happens in a split second, and a person's there 1 second and a shot rings out and they're, crumpled down or they're screaming on the floor, and it's so easy to die. And once you have that realization, it changes the way you see, like your dynamic, it changes the way you operate. I mean, I've been in a lot of really bad situations, but that was the one where I saw like, no matter how much organization you have behind you or how much knowledge you think you have, you can get killed in the blink of an eye, and the world will keep spinning. And it made me much more cautious after that.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm actually personally glad. But it's like, it does show you, like, if it's your time and you're meant to go tits up, you're going tits up, and there's very little that you can do. Like, luck has a lot to do with it, but also I think that you have tremendous survival skills. I don't want to use the word wily, because wily,
I'm like Scrappy Doo.
You're Scrappy Doo, but you really you know how to survive.
Like a cockroach.
Not like a cockroach, but like a person who understands, I may be safe here. That's not safe. These people need their stories told. They are voiceless. I should go here. I should go there.
No, I've been lucky.
But I also think that the people that you have represented in your storytelling have also been lucky. And I
take it very seriously. And I don't take myself seriously, but I take the pain of that person and the pain of their family very seriously, and their experience. And it's a privilege to be able to be in a position where you can turn those cameras on and bear witness to something and tell somebody's story and have it have an impact. And it's the greatest honor in my life.
And how do you then decompress when you come home? Do you turn on The Real Housewives? Do you read like Us Weekly?
I just have Andy. I have Andy give me the synopsis.
Oh, and so right now you're not following any of the shows on your own?
I'm not. So I was an early like Atlanta Housewives fan.
You told me about Atlanta Housewives.
Yeah, early Nene Leakes fan, and even that was even before I really knew Andy very well. I mean, we weren't even particularly close at that point, but it became so stressful for me because I would get so wrapped up in the drama of it all, and after a while, I just decided to take a break. But like every time I talk with Andy, I was talking to him on the phone the other day, and he was giving me the update on like some drama that's going on, and I was like, I need to maybe get back into this because I feel like I'm calm enough now that I need a little more excitement in my life.
So let's pivot a little bit and talk about Madonna.
Okay. What was the year that we went to see her in Paris? That was so fun.
Wasn't that fun?
We were like in the mosh pit. I don't know if they call it the mosh pit, but
they called it the Golden
Triangle.
Triangle.
Really?
That's what they called it, the Golden Triangle.
Okay. So we were in the Golden Triangle with a bunch of like Madonna super fans. It wasn't fancy people. It was just really hardcore people who loved Madonna.
So there's
like us.
So there are super fans that Guy Oseary goes and plucks them. Do you remember the time that you were plucked out of the stage in Brooklyn?
God. Oh, that I choose to forget.
How can you choose?
I'm mortified. I mean, I loved the whole idea of it. I love the experience of it. I don't love the video that exists of it, the reality.
I shot that video because I had seen that particular show like two or three times at that point. And I was like, she's going to pull you on stage and bend you over and spank you. And then.
Right. All of which I sort of heard, but I didn't really hear. And then they were pulling me away to like get on the thing. And I was just like, okay. And I mean, I didn't know what the hell was going on. I was terrible. I danced terribly. It was mortifying. And it also, I got to say, it makes you realize suddenly, we all watch people perform in these stages and like they make it look like it's just so natural and normal. Even the way they're like dance, running, walking down the stage.
Yeah.
I'm like, what do I skip? And then all of a sudden you find yourself like you're standing on this thing and then she hands you a banana.
Yeah.
And then and right before that, she'd like pushed me over and humped me, which I didn't expect at all. So I just I open up and I start to peel it and eat the banana. And then all of a sudden I start lowering down on this little electronic like elevator, disappearing on the stage, just like eating this banana. I don't know. To this day, I don't know what happened.
So the best part of that whole thing is that you had handed me your cell phone and you either handed me a wallet or you had like your ID. And I tucked it into my underpants because I only had two hands, one for my camera and one for your camera. And I put your wallet in my
By the
underpants.
way, I don't know why we thought like I needed to record it on my camera because there were literally 18,000 people in the Barclays Center, many of whom were recording it and putting it online.
But the best...
And by the way, anyone listening to this, please do not go and look at it online. Anyone listening to this, please do not go and look at it online because it's just mortifying. Truly mortifying.
The best part of the whole thing was that we got plucked in that moment by Madonna's people and they were like, "You're with Anderson." And we were like, "Yes." And they said, "Come with us." And we were taken into this like sub basement where there was a car. Yes, you don't remember this because you were not in your body, but you were standing there leaning against a black wall, eating the banana, and you go, "Did you see me?" That's what you said. That was the first thing you said. "Did you see me?" I said, "Oh, honey, all of New York saw you."
That's funny.
It was. I know because you were clearly not in your body, but you were still eating your banana, which was so great.
Oh my God, the whole thing was crazy.
Just before we go, can you tell Jan and Albert the story about when you were dropped off at college for the first time?
It's very relatable. I mean, I'm sure everybody's had this experience. As many of my stories from my life are very relatable. I know, and I know that. but I tell them anyway. So I was going to college, and I was unaware, my mom was unaware that like parents take their kids to college oftentimes. From what I understand and what I have subsequently learned, a parent or two parents will go and bring the kid to college. Never occurred to my mom. Like it wasn't even like, should I come? It was just like,
see you later, darling.
See ya. Yeah, exactly. And so my mom had a car and a driver, a lovely man named Paul Nip, and she was like, Paul will drive you up to school. And I was like, okay, cool. So Paul drove me up to college. And he parked the car, and he took one bag, and I took one bag, and he helped drop off the bags. And I met for the first time my other roommates who were there. And I said, hey, this is Paul. And they met him. And anyway, later that night, we were sitting around talking, and they all thought he was my dad.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to really say, so I didn't say anything really about it.
Right.
As far as I can remember. So I just sort of let it go for quite a while, actually. And then I think it was finally once I knew them, I was like, by the way, my dad's actually dead. He died when I was 10. That was my mom's driver, Paul. Was that the story you were talking about?
That's my favorite story. It makes me laugh
right.
every time you tell it, because I am like,
very relatable.
even when I took Michael to NYU, there were kids sobbing, clinging to their parents.
Oh, I know. And there were like orientation meetings and things for parents going on. I was like, I had no idea. I thought we were just going to get going. I thought there was like a class and like we were just going to start. I didn't know there was a whole like ramping up to it.
Did you hug Paul goodbye?
No, I didn't hug Paul goodbye. I shook his hand.
You shook his hand? Not like a double kiss on the cheek?
No, there was
nothing like that.
There was no emotional goodbye.
What's going to happen to us, and I'm including myself in this, what is going to happen to us emotionally when Wyatt and Sebastian go to Yale and Harvard, respectively? Assuming.
Well, first of all, who knows where they'll go to college, if they go to college. The whole idea of that terrifies me. But, it'll be wherever they go, as long as they're healthy and happy.
Well, you're doing an outstanding job with them. You, as a parent, you're just as thoughtful and exceptional as you are with everything else you do in your life. And I really appreciate you taking time to talk with us.
It was so much fun.
Yeah.
But next time I'm thinking not just Jan, Albert, Kelly, and Anderson, but maybe Stacy.
I believe Stacy needs her own hour. And then you'll come in as the fourth host.
By the way, I would love to. First of all, what you should do is you should record an hour with Albert for his perspective and his version of events.
And then
do a separate hour with Stacy and her version of events.
That's actually.
And then maybe at the end you join them together and just sort of
That's a great
talk
idea.
it out.
Why does Anderson have all the good ideas?
That's next week.
What in the world? Next week on a very special.
And you know who? And Andy can co-host it. He can help stir the pot.
He'll co-host the reunion. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
That's
Calling
a great
Andy
idea.
Cohen right now.
Yeah, write that down, Jan. She's writing it down. Anderson, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really
I love
appreciate it. I love you, honey. Bye. Guys,
I mean,
if Anderson doesn't have all the good ideas, I don't know. We began and ended with you and Stacy.
but everything in between, my God, that man's an incredible. Can you imagine that being your father?
I'd say they are the luckiest kids.
Luckiest.
The luckiest kids on earth.
And I
because
adore your friendship with him. It's amazing.
I am the fly that is constantly buzzing around him. He doesn't need, but he endures. He tolerates, and I feel very blessed.
All right, we've got a couple of Ask Kellys.
Okay.
You ready?
It's time for Ask Kelly.
Still not floating my boat.
All right, well,
Still not floating my
this is a
boat.
good one because we just talked about Anderson's kids leaving to go to college and what that'll be like for him.
What will it be like for me? Forget him. What about me?
Well, Holly D says, I too have been married for 20 plus years and I have 3 children who are grown. I find myself longing for the early years. I've struggled to find myself since the kids have moved out and I feel lost. I wonder who I am now. My question is, did this ever happen to you and how did you cope and do you have any advice?
Yes, it did happen. It happened to us in a very ferocious way. We were not expecting it. And Holly, I found myself trying to remember, like I was freakishly replaying their childhoods in my mind, trying to remember if I was present enough or if I could remember these moments enough. And it plagued me, and it started making me very, very depressed. Like, I'm not going to lie to you. I went through it. I was very lost. And then Mark and I decided, after we had a big fight one night, we decided to go to the beach. I don't know if you live near a beach, but and neither do we. We don't live near a beach, but we drove out to Long Island and we went to the beach. And we'd been to the beach with our kids 1,000 times. And we saw our first ever sunset after like 25 years of having kids. We saw our first ever sunset at the beach. And it was kind of marvelous to us. And we were like, does the sun always set? We didn't realize, because we were so in the job of parenting and making sure they didn't drown or burn themselves with a bonfire or run off and get hit by a car in the parking lot or get kidnapped, what have you, like all this stuff, right? All this stuff that parents do, that we didn't enjoy the simple things. So if I were you, I would retrace the steps of things you used to do with your kids and find the joy in that, because there's a whole big world out there of stuff you missed because you were in it. And now, like, I remember I used to, Jan and I were talking about this, we are runners, we would go for runs, but I was always running with this mission of getting back home before the kids woke up and wanted breakfast. So I never enjoyed a moment of running. Running was a mission. I had to get here and get back before they got up and wanted something to eat, right? And now I find myself jogging and like going off on beaten paths that I would never be curious about or go down. I would never go down an off the running path because I didn't have time for that. And now I find myself having like more time. So I would invest. I'm not saying like, oh, pick up a new habit, find a new this, find a new that, because that takes time to develop all of that. But you can easily relive things you did with your kids without them, and it takes on like a new sort of simplicity and a new decadence, because you're not speeding through it. You're not trying to get them in and out before they have a breakdown, or in and out before they want dinner, or in and out before their bedtime, or what have you, whatever it is. Like, you can take joy in these little things.
It's funny because last night when I read this question before we were doing this today, and last night, like, Glenn and I were going to bed, and I found myself asking him all these questions about the kids. And I was like, wow, this is our conversation 99% of the time. And so like I made a point to myself to not talk about them, to like, because we have to, like the same way we talk about a marriage, like we have to have other things going on in our lives,
right.
Like find other joy in other things. And that can't be the only thing we talk about, because that's like, it's just not going to be healthy for us.
It's not going to be
Right.
healthy. You have to reimagine yourself. You're always going to be their mother. I
Right.
mean, forever and ever. But your relationship with them will in fact change. And I think it changes for the better, the less dependent they become on you. And, you know, your success as a mother, your kids are supposed to go away. They're supposed to thrive, and they're supposed to survive outside of the nest. And that means that you're an exceptional mom, Holly, and that means that you've done your job. But in the meantime, pick up where you left off with them and go just revisit things that you used to do, and you'll discover like a whole new. We did not know that we liked the beach. We, for many years, hated the beach because it was so we associated it with being exhausted.
You also posted a picture of a nice baguette in that beach.
Yes, we took a
some
baguette and cheese. We would never take a baguette,
I was
warm
very-
baguette and cheese to the beach.
I wanted that baguette.
It always turns to food.
It was so good. It was so good. We ate the whole thing. We ate the whole cheese and the whole baguette. By the way, we watched other parents, Holly. We watched these other parents, and they looked like they were suffering. They had kids in varieties of ages, and I was like, they've had 18 more years of hell.
All right, Albert, you're up.
All right, this is from your new Threads account.
Oh, Threads. What is Threads again?
Threads is the Meta Twitter.
Okay, I don't even know what that means. So go ahead.
But you're on it.
I'm on it. Okay.
From Jamie Ostro, do you have any recurring dreams? If so, what are they about?
You know, I don't have recurring dreams anymore, but I used to. I used to have this recurring dream. I've talked about it many, many times. This recurring dream, it was really bizarre that I was at a luau. I had never been to Hawaii. I always say it's because I grew up a child of the 70s, so we didn't really travel much when I was a kid. And so we would travel by watching Fantasy Island and The Love Boat. So like we would either go, everything I knew about travel was Puerto Vallarta with the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders or Charo or Fantasy Island, which was, I believe, Hawaii. Yeah. And so these were my cultural reference points. So I would have this recurring dream that I was at a luau with men in leisure suits. Everybody was in a leisure suit because that's how like they dressed in Hawaii Five-0. And it's nighttime. There's tiki torches. This dog is barking, and I get up to go over to the dog. And I notice that the wind is blowing, and we're on the side of the cliff, and I don't want the dog to fall off the side of the cliff. We're high up, and this wind is blowing, and it's blowing, and I see something, but I'm not sure what it is. And I keep looking, and I'm blinking into the nighttime. It's like loud blinking, where you're blinking big. You're making your eyes as big as possible to see what it is. And all of a sudden, I see from the tiki torch lights that it is a tidal wave, and it is about to crash over me, and I wake up. And that was my reoccurring dream for years and years and years.
All right, we're going to get a dream specialist here on
Yeah.
the podcast, and we're going to analyze that dream.
Yeah, we should analyze that dream.
Okay, more next time. Let's plug Anderson's projects now.
Yes. Okay. Just want to remind everyone to pick up a copy of Dispatches from the Edge, Vanderbilt, The Rise and Fall of an American Dynasty, and The Rainbow Comes and Goes, which is a book Anderson co-wrote with his mom, the late Gloria Vanderbilt. All three of them are riveting reads. He's a really brilliant, brilliant writer. His podcast is called All There Is. It's kind of the opposite of this podcast. He deals a lot about grief and how to overcome grief and move past loss, which he has had, for all of the gifts he's been given, he's had a lot taken away. So thank you so much for joining us this week. I hope you got a lot out of Anderson Cooper. We squeezed that lemon as hard as we could, didn't we, Jan?
We did.
We did.
But I can keep going with it.
I wish we had like a 15-hour miniseries on just Anderson Cooper. Now, don't forget, listeners at home, we're a new show in a sea of podcasts, so don't forget to tell your friends. Let's Talk Off Camera is available every week on the SXM app and all major podcast listening platforms. Can't wait to talk off camera next week. Bye-bye. Let's Talk Off Camera with Kelly Ripa is a co-production of Melojo Productions and PRX Productions with help from Goat Rodeo. Our theme song is Follow Me from APM Music. From Melojo, our team is Kelly Ripa, Mark Consuelos, Albert Bianchini, Jan Chalet, Devin Schneider, Michael Halpern, Jacob Small, Roz Therian, Seth Gronquist, and Julia Desch. From PRX Productions, our team is Kara Schillen, Genevieve Sponsler, Megan Nadolski, Edwin Ochoa. Additional sound design by Terrence Bernardo. The executive producer of PRX Productions is Jocelyn Gonzalez. This show is powered by Stitcher.
From PRX.